quick-serve aspect too far. All of the vendors had stayed on after their usual closing time to help with service and answer questions, but the bulk of the food had been handled by the catering staff, who seemed more than capable. "Here, try this." Claudia's friend Betty materialized seemingly out of nowhere and handed her a spoonful of something green, which Claudia dutifully put in her mouth. "Delicious," she said. "What is it?" "Kale pesto. I'm trying to decide if it needs more cheese." Betty, in addition to her day jobs of helping to run the guest ranch she owned with her husband, cooking all the meals for same and raising 3 children, had recently started her own catering business, and Claudia knew this dinner was the biggest thing she had taken on so far, which probably went a long way to explaining why her usually unflusterable friend was showing signs of stress for the first time since Claudia had known her. Not that anyone who didn't know her would have noticed. With her naturally effortless sense of style, Betty's frazzled would count as most people's just spent an hour getting ready to go out. "I don't think it's missing anything," Claudia said on the subject of the pesto, "but I'd never say no to more cheese." Betty nodded in a way that made it clear she hadn't heard a word Claudia had said, while her eyes followed one of the waiters as she overloaded a tray with water glasses. "Okay, maybe I'll just grate some over the top. Thanks." Betty took the spoon back and flitted off in the direction of the next crisis, leaving Claudia with a handful of cutlery and no idea what number she had gotten to. She was about to start again when there was a shout and a crash from the pickle shop and a stream of invective from Helen, the store's owner. Claudia looked at the place settings and back at her marketplace, and it was clear where her priorities needed to be. "May the forks be with us," she muttered, and went to see what the problem was this time. 1.5 hours and 15 near disasters later, and improbably the tables were set, the food was plated and waiting to serve, and everything was about as ready as it was going to be, which was good because the guests were already starting to filter in, thanks to whoever had forgotten the front door was propped open. Through it, Claudia could see that the parking lot was filling up and the overflow was heading up the road toward the tiny cottage where she lived and onto the much grander house of her nearest neighbor. A few months earlier, that would have been another cause for concern, but one of the results of the rather lively summer Claudia had had was that she and Nathan Rogers were on much better terms than they had been. Good enough, in fact, that he was there now, helping to set up the beer taps in the temporary bar. In his previous life, if a 37-year-old can be said to have had a previous life, he had been the founder and owner of Fogheart Brewing Company, a local brewery that had attained near legendary status among beer nerds, until he got bored and sold it to a multinational conglomerate for what he would only describe as a lot of money. The resulting leisure had left him at loose ends, which had originally been the source of some friction when Claudia moved in and opened the market, and now meant that he showed up at random times to talk about his latest ideas or just to see if she wanted to get some dinner. Claudia wasn't sure what sort of relationship he thought they had, or even what she wanted, but she'd come to like having him around. And it certainly didn't hurt the attendance at the charity dinner when word had somehow gotten out that it would be the exclusive place to try the results of his latest project, an experiment with sour beers using locally grown fruit. Already a number of men with ill-advised beards had come in and made a beeline for the bar, where they waited impatiently, clutching their drink tickets. Thinking of bees reminded Claudia that she should probably check on her newest tenant. Most of the shops in the marketplace were set up for food sales, with sinks and power for refrigerators, but there was one that had space for neither, and it had